Welcome everyone to another episode of KQL Cafe. We're already in the second month of the year 2025, February. As always, your hosts, Johnny and myself. And the agenda, good things never change. First of all, a warm welcome to everyone. Then we have some updates for you from the world of KQL, what's new, stuff that we find in the interwebs. Again, today we have yet another very special guest, Uri, who will talk us through. And I noticed I probably made a mistake in the announcement because I believe it's not Azure Fabric, it should be Microsoft Fabric, right? Okay,
No
so
worries. We'll try to fix all the mistakes and make new ones. So.
yeah, okay, good. Then we have some resources and some learning KQL inspirations, and as always, last but not least, stuff we did with KQL in our daily work. So let's get this started. On the news, yes, I came across a new website called kql.how. There's a big note there. It's still under construction. Nevertheless, to me, as I see it now, it's kind of a water cooler of all KQL relevant information. Right now, a mix of Microsoft Learn content, but I also see here and there some personal attributions. So definitely keep an eye on this website. I'm curious to see when it's finished. And the author, and sorry, I forgot to add the name, but he also made a reference to the inspiration why he started this website.
Our good friend Brian Bonk.
Ah, okay, good. Yeah. Then a very useful tip from Bert-Jan. He published this, I believe, at the end of last month. And for anyone who likes data mining and likes to find out whether there are any new so-called action types, although the term action types really applies to the Defender table, but in Azure it would be activities and operational types. So all these Custo tables typically have a table that basically translates into the either API function or the operation that's being executed. And of course, it can also always be interesting to know when suddenly, in general, a new action type is released by Microsoft. But also to identify action types in your environment. So what Bert-Jan did here is basically create a logic app that you can schedule, and it will basically produce a report and let you know whether any Defender for Endpoint or any depending on against which platform you run this. So you can run it just against Defender for Endpoint tables or in Sentinel across all your tables, and it will basically give you a summary of new identified action types or operations discovered in your production logs. Then we have someone I started noticing, Aura. Johnny and I are still hunting for the real identity here. So if you happen to watch this video and your name is Aura or Security Aura, please let us know who you are. It appears to be someone in Canada. And yes, Security Aura is on a cool mission. So initially initiated by our good friend Matt Zorich with his 365 days of KQL, and then followed by other people. And now Security Aura is also on 100 days of Aura of KQL marathon. Well, take a look yourself. Very useful queries, both for inspiration and those working in security. Definitely also a ton of cool detection queries to make use of. So again, Aura, if you hear this, please let us know. We would like to have you on the show and know about and learn about your KQL inspiration and background. Then Rob Trent, he posted, I think it was in LinkedIn, some cool approach, like opening a website in X, and then with Copilot in X, basically ask Copilot, and the normal Copilot, I'm not talking about the security Copilot, to basically produce hunting queries based on the information displayed in the article. So although I found the approach interesting, I gave it a try myself. So I hooked up, a DFIR report and asked basically the same question. And does it really work? Well, as always with AI, it can hallucinate, or it can make up things that aren't really there. So reading the report a couple of times, so those two queries, wouldn't make any sense. But the last one did, and it actually produced more KQL queries. So again, can be helpful, but definitely, don't just 100% trust the output it is producing here. Still, consult the actual document that you're looking at, and whether the queries actually make sense. Yeah, and that was it basically of news that we have since our last session in January. I'm sure there might be more out there, so feel free to ping us if you feel like, hey, Alex, Johnny, why did you miss this important update? But yeah, without losing any further time, please let me warmly welcome Uri. Uri is from Microsoft, and he will talk us through Microsoft Fabric. And with that, I'll hand the virtual mic over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me well? If you can,
Yes.
just like any kind of emoticon will be awesome. And I'll share my screen, and we'll also enable sound. Awesome. And it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Uri Barash. I do product management for Kusto, Azure Data Explorer, Event Houses, and KQL in Fabric, and the entire shebang. It's a pleasure to be in this warm and connected family, and I do want to leverage any moment of your time that you spend with me. Please do interact. You're welcome to write. You're welcome to open mic and talk, and let's take advantage of us being here in the same virtual room together. Really appreciate the interaction and spending the time together. So. While this is KQLCafe, I'm gonna divert a little bit from just the language, and I think you've been diverting in many directions over the years to enrich the conversation. And I'll talk today about Fabric, but feel free to direct me into the different directions that you want us to pull this conversation. I'll try to entertain you and show you cool things. We also have lots of ideas that we can share with this forum in future sessions, because there are lots of things that are coming up. So bring it on. So first, I want to do a small survey. If you can please on where you use KQL, I'll paste 4 different messages. You don't have to choose one. You can actually like all of them, but it gives me a context of where to place the emphasis on. So with those counts, we can actually have a ball. Just like the ones and Power BI and Logic App are awesome. Really cool. So with that, I'll start. You'll keep on liking, and I'll start talking, and I'll try to monitor the chat. And if I miss something, then let me know. So I'll do it really quickly. I'll try to talk about things that you probably know very well, like data is exploding, and the biggest and the fastest segment of data that is exploding is high granularity data that you can collect very easily, relatively, and then in order to analyze, derive insight, and act, it's a big challenge because it's becoming super easy to collect data, and this is why this is the fastest growing data segment. High granularity data, activity from users, machines, computers, etc. And I'll talk about like what do I mean by high granularity in a second. But we're seeing this across every industry. A lot of the folks here are in the security or monitoring environment, but really, like we have a lot of automotive usages, manufacturing, telco, finance, a lot of energy, and this is practically every kind of organization that has operations is actually experiencing that explosion of operational data growth. And today, one second, I'll do something with the Teams so that it doesn't pop up. Okay, so today, when folks are trying to create this kind of analytical systems on high granularity data, usually fast flowing, high volumes, and very often real time, they have a huge plethora of tools and capabilities that they need to stitch and pipe together. And that brought Microsoft to the point. And what we're seeing is that we are getting like pretty fragmented and fragile tech stacks. We're seeing a very diverse skill set that's required in order to stitch a single solution. We're seeing a lot of people trying to like take batch technologies, and it's like trying to make a faster horse using batch tech, and we're still seeing like a lot of data silos, a lot of like people closing the data because they don't have governance tools. And what we in like high granularity data in Cousteau we've seen from almost day one is that the biggest advantage of dealing with high granularity data, dealing with raw data analytics, is the ability to find the things that we did not eventually plan for or look for. And this is why it's like so popular in security, where you have an attacker that's trying to avoid what you were looking for in the first place, or malfunctions or operational problems that always happen when you least expect them. This is why the ability to deal with like raw data, high granularity raw data, and apply schema on read in order to deal with it is so powerful with the technology exposed by KQL and Cousteau. And what Microsoft identified with that is that not only with Cousteau, but in general, is that a unified analytical solution will make life easier for a lot of folks. Yeah, you can just like it creates a little bit of nausea to look at the ecosystem, when we think about like what high granularity means, we're talking about first, the business question changes every day. Maybe you switch partners, you switch devices, new versions of devices. You have different business needs in order that you want to ask questions about, and you didn't aggregate the data or plan the data in advance for that. Very often the data changes because of the changes in version, that changes in vendors, the changes in business questions. You need different. You need to deal with high velocity changes in the schema itself. We got everyone used to, like, someone likes a tweet in Japan and everyone knows about it across the globe. And we very often in enterprises, we don't see that level of immediacy in dealing with data. And especially when we're thinking about like operations and security and optimization. Very often the value of a single line of data is not very high, but if you don't manage to deal with it, you actually lose a lot of the value that you can extract. But in order to extract this data and use it and generate value out of it, you must be extremely efficient. And this is why the Kusto technology is like extremely optimized for the high granularity data, which is always like high volume and relatively low value for each individual row, but a lot of value for the aggregated insights that you can derive out of them. And the last thing is the unpredictable phenomena, the unknown unknowns. If you pre-aggregate the data, you lose the ability to look for things that you did not look for in advance or did you not predict. So this is why Microsoft built a Microsoft Fabric, in order to deal with the plethora of like tools and capabilities. And in Microsoft Fabric, there is quite a lot of technologies, all the way from batch data movement with Data Factory and data warehousing. Databases just were added to Fabric, like SQL databases are already in Fabric. Real-time intelligence, including Kusto, event houses, the ability to create alerts and messaging, event hubs, event streams, Power BI for business insights, visualizations, and more is coming, like industry solutions, partner workloads, and this is actually open for extensibility. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely reach out for me afterwards about like how people can actually add workloads into Fabric. And everything is built on top of an AI infrastructure, OneLake as a single data estate across all these elements, and Purview for governance. This is the story that Microsoft tells on like how we take this problem of like the diverse, really extremely diverse ecosystem, and tells a single, consistent, integrated story. So people need to work less on integration and more about the value that we're trying to extract from data. A little bit about like OneLake. OneLake is a virtualization of storage, so that all your data estate can be viewed using a consistent set of tools, all the way from Kusto event houses, data warehouses, but also data from all over the place, naturally from Azure, but from AWS, GCP, Dynamics, Snowflake. You can actually create a shortcut into these things and sometimes just refer to the data in place, sometimes actually sync the data into the storage on Azure, and still you see that as a single OneLake of data that makes all the data available across the organization with the mere like permissions to actually govern like who can actually look at the data. But in terms of technology, all the data is available. And I'll talk more about like how Kusto and OneLake interact with each other in that context. So when we like zoom in a little bit into what real-time intelligence in Fabric is, So it has event ingestion with event stream, which is the equivalent in Fabric for Azure Event Hubs, Event Grid, and Stream Analytics. Real-time analytics or event houses is the good old Cousteau. There are AI technologies, real-time dashboards, the same dashboard as like the Azure Data Explorer dashboards, real-time rules with Activator, and also like event-driven action again pushed by Activator. So these are components. I'll show you a few things how this is working. Let me show you a short movie that will tell another variant of the story.
Introducing real-time intelligence in Microsoft Fabric, an end-to-end solution empowering you to get instant
I did hear it, but it's paused
actionable
now.
insights on streaming data. At its heart lies a central place to discover, manage, and consume event data across your entire organization with a rich, governed experience. Get started quickly by bringing in data from Microsoft sources and across clouds with a variety of out-of-the-box connectors. Route the relevant data to the right destination in Fabric using a simple drag-and-drop experience. Explore insights on petabytes of streaming data with just a few clicks. Elevate your analysis by harnessing the intelligence of Copilot in Microsoft Fabric using simple, natural language. Make efficient business decisions in the moment with real-time, actionable insights and respond to changing landscapes proactively. Allow users to monitor the data they care about, detect changing patterns, and set alerts or actions that drive business value. All your data, all your teams, all in one place. This is Microsoft Fabric.
Yep. So that's the
Introduce.
That's a marketing pitch, and like it's a cool video. But let's talk about like drill into more things. So I covered these, like these are the technologies like in Azure where just like we actually took the Power BI SaaS framework. We separated Power BI, the application, from the SaaS framework that powered Power BI, and we leveraged that SaaS framework to actually host additional workloads, all the other workloads that we've seen all the way from Azure Data Factory all the way to Data Warehouse, and within that, like also like Event Hubs, Event Grid, Stream Analytics, and Azure Data Explorer. We connected all of them, and we created the real-time intelligence in Fabric. So I don't know like how much you are familiar with the amount of like data that Cousteau is now managing, but it's like a little bit over 20 exabytes of data under management. We ingest like this slide is, I apologize for not updating it. It's a little bit over like 400 petabytes of new data every day that we are ingesting. The largest table that we've seen is about like 2.1, 2.2, depends on the day, of petabytes per day into a single table. So this is the type of like data that we're dealing with. And since in the last year, we also made Azure Data Explorer a Ring 0 service across Azure. That means that it is available by default on every Azure region as like the first set of services that are available there, even before the site goes, the region goes live. So with that, let me show you like a demo so that you like, that's not a movie. I'll go for it like as quickly as I can, and definitely interested to hear your feedback. And so I created a new workspace. A workspace is a way to organize the project in Fabric. Create a new workspace called like KQLCafe demo. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to select what kind of solution am I going to build. I think I'll build an event analytics solution. Okay, so I select that and I get this diagram like with this thing, and I want to get I want to bring in more data. So I'll get some streaming data in. I'll create an event stream. The event stream, what's really cool about it is it come with sample data generator. So it's really fun to play with. So I'm creating this one. I'll create another one. In general, in Fabric, like the SaaS framework of like Power BI, there are some principles, like everything needs to be created in like few seconds. It's called like 5 seconds to wow, 5 minutes to a walking thing. So 5 seconds to deploy, 5 minutes to wow. So I created an object. I want to choose, like I call it buses, so I'll choose the buses information, and I'll put like my bus company. And I'm not going to do anything with it for now. I'm going to publish it. And I'm going to create another one. Let's get some bikes as well. What I'm doing now, I'm creating event hubs with sorry, I have to fix the spelling mistakes. I'm creating like a few sources. They come with the data, with sample data that's being generated constantly. I'll go and create another one. Let's get some taxis as well.
And while you're creating, so is this the same event hub that we know exists already since a couple of years in Azure? For example, when I want to bring in, of course, I have to say this, security logs and or on-prem logs. Is that the same event hub behind the scenes here, or is this the same name but another technology?
It's the same technology. What did I do wrong? Let me understand. Like 1 second. 1 second. It's the same. It's the same. It's the same technology. It's wrapped in the SaaS framework environment, and it has within the event stream. It has the ability to add transformations, to route the data. So it's an event hub and an event and a stream analytics before and after, and the ability to add data from a variety of sources. So once I created those three things, I can actually go to the real-time hub, and real-time hub is where I see all my streaming data. We are doing work to get like things like Azure Monitor and Sentinel streams over here as well. It's work in progress. If anyone is interested in trying some of these out, then reach out to me, because we have a private previews, 2 programs, private previews that are currently ongoing about like streaming data from, for example, Azure Monitor Agent and DCRs over into Fabric. And here you can actually see like all those sources. You can connect to them. You can see also event hubs on Azure and databases on Azure, and practically this is your catalog for all the streaming data that exists. We constantly add data into this thing. When we're looking at the at my data stream, for example, I can do stuff with it. For example, I can preview it. I can open the item, I can endorse it, so that if I want to say like this is a great stream, etc. So this is where you find a lot of things, including Azure events and Fabric events, and we're also working on adding like third-party elements over here. But we also want to store this data, and we'll create an event house. An event house is a Custo cluster practically. The same one that powers Azure Monitor, Sentinel, XDR, etc. So creating a Custo cluster here takes a few seconds. It's using the same technology that we use to create like these free Azure Data Explorer clusters, and it automatically grows all the way to like thousands of nodes. And what we'll do, we'll start like connecting the data from those event stream over here. So second. Oh, sorry about that.
It's always good that the demo gods are helping you when it's time.
Exactly. I don't know why it's like doing this, but like we'll do it. So now it's getting some data from the event stream. Once it gets a few rows that it can use, you can even choose to do some transformation using Stream Analytics on the data before you are adding it into the database. And while it does take a few seconds, it's like we're going to set up a pretty large system up front here that it's a little bit more complicated to do so in Azure. So we actually created a lot of such integration. Oh, sorry.
A quick question. So basically you can type in any word and then it will create some sample data for it.
Well, there are currently 4 sample data sets available. There are also some end-to-end samples that you can actually go and create a full solution end-to-end. I actually want to show like how this is happening here, and you can actually control the schema. You can create the mapping of data as the data is coming in, and change names, etc. Do whatever you want. We are going to work more on like the ability to modify and edit this like after the fact as well. So with this, we can now go and do some stuff. For example, we can ask for a few lines of data, and we got those, right? Let's do something interesting. Let's do like union. Doesn't make a lot of like demo sense, but union bikes and taxis. Okay, so if I run this, I get the join of both table, but I want to create a function out of this. The function generation with no code is something that we are working on. It's not there yet, but I created a mobility function. So let me show you something about the database. Now, you can actually go and hit like entity diagram, and you see the new function that I created and shows like how the data is used from the bikes and taxis in the mobility. How the data will flow into those tables is also coming up really soon. So these are like things that we can do. Now, another thing that I can show you about the real-time hub, it's another functionality that's like really cool. I can go and do something like this, like no, second. Yeah, not sure why it's not here yet. We'll come here soon. Let's move on. So okay, so I want to show you a few things around this. Like within Fabric, now I can do I can do this, like which street are my bikes at, for example. And what it will do, it will create a query that I can insert and run. So this is really cool on this way. I can also do another thing. I can go into the workspace. Now I have all these elements here, and I create something that's pretty cool. It's called an AI skill. I'm creating an AI skill and call it like mobility agent. And I choose both the bikes and the taxis. And then I can go and ask things here like how many bikes in each street. Now, the beauty of the AI skill is that very soon it's going to be connected to Teams. So you can actually go publish this and have this thing available for you in Teams, so you can ask those questions within Teams, and not only you get the answers, and I didn't do any like funny like graph rag complex stuff here. I just like dragged and drop elements, and it shows me all the data and what the queries that I used. It can also connect to other sources, not only Kusto, but also like SQL and data lake elements, and even automatically join. I have a movie on that if you want to see it like a little bit afterwards. So let's see if my tables are back. My tables are back. Awesome. So those tables are here. So what I can do, I can take the bikes, for example, I can say like, hey, why don't you create a real-time dashboard on that table for me? And this will do this like thing. It will think like really hard on that thing, but see, I have a dashboard. That like shows me some of the data. This is like actually a little bit. It gives you like the top insights from the data that we shared with it. There are multiple pages here. You can also see the data profile, like how the data behaves over time, how is it partitioned, what are the different the schema, and you can also do things like this, like for example, select each column. For example, I do cross filter, and it automatically changes the dashboard. So that thing is being automatically created. We continue to evolve that thing. Let me give you another interesting function that we've added into Fabric. Data exploration. You look at this and you can say like, hey, I want to aggregate count by street, and make me a pie chart for this. Okay. And I can go and add that. It does not add it to this one yet, so no worries. But I can go and add those exploration into dashboards, etc. So this is just like a tip on the iceberg on what the integration means in the context of Fabric. Any questions about the demo, or like?
Yes. Maybe also to facilitate the understanding a little bit. So when you created the workspace, and of course I was looking behind the scene, okay, how can I deploy this? And of course, and I know we're not going to talk about cost, but I see something about a SKU that I need, or at least I need to factor in my purchase budget. And I see OneLake storage, and there I see OneLake storage, and I see something like OneLake BCDR storage and OneLake cache. Am I correct that these are basically some of the underlying components that I have to factor in when building a solution, or when actually starting to deploy a workspace, or does that happen afterwards or before?
Wonderful question. One of the value of like Fabric in general is that you actually buy a virtual compute. You buy a capacity unit. It's called like Fabric capacity, and that comes in like different like sizes, and everything that you do actually consumes from that capacity. The capacity is a compute capacity. In addition, if you store stuff, it charges you OneLake storage. If you enable BCDR, then it will charge you like very, very similar to ADLS storage and like LRS and GRS. So BCDR will be GRS.
What does BCDR stand for?
Business continuity and disaster recovery. So it's like globally available storage. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about like OneLake cache is that this was introduced specifically for event houses for Kusto, because in Kusto, one thing that we do with the data is we cache it on NVMEs. And based on the amount of data that you cache on NVMEs, we charge OneLake cache. I can say that we've worked extremely hard to make it very consistent with Azure Data Explorer in terms of the pricing, so that cost would not be a reason to go that way or that way, but actually the integration, deployment, etc. You asked about deployment, and I'll talk about it because deployment is actually happening a little bit differently in Fabric. That's actually really cool as well. So I did show you a little bit about the OneLake hub, the real-time hub, and the OneLake. The OneLake is all my data estate. Real-time hub is the all my streaming data, and actually event houses are the places in the middle. Tables are both part of the OneLake and part of the real-time hub. We can brag a little bit about some of the customers that we've published, but let's talk about even get into more detail. So with event houses, and I'll talk a little bit about the differences between Azure Data Explorers and event houses in Fabric. So event houses in Fabric, because they participate in the Fabric ecosystem, and OneLake is a foundational element in Fabric, then every item is actually a folder within the OneLake. In the OneLake, the one big data estate for the organization, there are workspaces. Within the workspaces, there are items. I showed you workspaces, I showed you items. Each item is a folder. You can actually go and look inside the folder, and that folder has delta tables that represent the tables in Kusto. Now, we didn't change Kusto to run over delta table because that would be slow. We run it on the same Kusto storage, but we make the data available also in Delta Parquet, so that the data science, data analytics, and the pipelines and the data warehouses, etc., in Fabric can actually consume this data in Delta Parquet, which is the interchange format within Fabric. So we still maintain the same performance. We don't cost any additional, because it's the same logical copy inside Kusto and in Delta. So that automatic mirroring into OneLake is a very attractive thing for a lot of customers that actually want to consume this data for Spark and batch processing. Another thing, we call it lake availability. Another thing that is a core element in Fabric is called shortcuts. Within the database, I can actually go and create shortcuts into other data in OneLake. Now, when I create a shortcut like that, I can do it for Amazon, for Google, for Azure Storage, for Dataverse. But if I'm looking at the specific ones, then when I do this, I can actually specify I want to accelerate it. What does it mean to accelerate? It means that the event house looks at the delta table over there and practically ingests it. Doesn't ask you a question about the schema, doesn't ask you a question about the size of the velocity, etc. Just the data becomes available, and you get Kusto speed on this data automatically. And very often people put data in a lake and just because they did, and then it's there. And how do you consume it? Shortcuts, accelerated shortcuts are a great way to get the Kusto performance and speed over data in Delta.
And just because you mentioned the word ingesting, so is the shortcut actually a simplified saying a link to other data, and again it brings it into the other lake, or is it more like that you now can combine data that is in two different lakes?
Everything is like one lake, but it's in different folders within that lake.
Yeah.
So I don't know, ponds, never mind. But the thing is that once you create an accelerated shortcut into a delta table in OneLake, you can now join the data. You can do everything you can treat it as if it's a Kusto table completely. And you also you asked about pricing, like the space that it takes on the NVMe is also being charged as OneLake cache, but it doesn't make it very easy to bring a lot of data in as reference data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm just trying in my little world of Sentinel to find the use case. But as an example, I could have a data lake with security log data, and I could have something like with threat intelligence maybe in another lake. And with the shortcut, I could basically query and leverage threat intelligence information against my security logs I have stored in that lake as well.
Completely, and we are working on increasing the integration with Sentinel, the security product, and the Microsoft Sentinel Graph is integrated with this. So you can expect more on the integration front to come, constantly on that front.
Is there also a use case to consider leveraging Microsoft Fabric, for example, for scenarios where I want to keep my data way longer? Although in log analytics, we meanwhile also have this whole notion of, retention periods up to, several years. But is there also this concept, assuming that I rarely touch that data, to bring it over into Microsoft Fabric?
So that is exactly the integration that we are working on. Mm-hmm. There are multiple ways to do it. This is something that will come up very, very soon. If you're interested in more private preview details, then reach out and I'll share, and we'll see how we can do stuff. But it's definitely something that's coming up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And just for the record, we did not prepare these questions. These are really my spontaneous questions.
And folks on the chat, please chime in as well. Whatever comes to your mind, completely. So a little bit about experiences. What's cool about Fabric is the experiences that I demonstrated. You can actually use them. Even with data not in Fabric, you can use them in order to connect to Azure Data Explorers. You can use them to connect into Sentinel and to Azure Monitor. We are going to make that connectivity a lot easier from the UI, so that those query sets within Fabric you can use them to store queries against against Sentinel and Azure Monitor, and you can also collaborate on them because they are stored in a workspace and they are shareable between multiple people. So now you have a shared storage for queries, you have shared dashboards, you have discovery for dashboards, because now you can actually search for dashboards, and as opposed to Azure Data Explorer, we still don't have a discovery service for all the dashboard that you have access to. But everything works across, everything that is working in Fabric can work against Azure Data Explorer, can work against Azure Data Explorer free clusters, and can work against the query endpoint of the Sentinel and Azure Monitor. And we are on the event house itself. It's a full functional parity. Everything that was working there, we're working really hard to make sure it works here as well. You can actually have, if you have a database in Azure Data Explorer, you can create a follower, a database shortcut, we call it, in Fabric that actually looks at the other one and reflects the same data. We are adopting application lifecycle management, ALM, so that you can deploy those things. So if you are looking at comparing what Azure Data Explorers as opposed to Event House in Fabric, what's the differences? One is SaaS, more SaaS. You don't control the SKUs. You have a lot less buttons. And on the other hand, in Azure, you have a lot more control over things. But it's very, very consistent, very, very much the same in terms of like performance, speed, language, semantics, everything. As I said, you can cross link. One you deploy via ARM, one you deploy via Fabric ALM, and we will work on in-place migration in the next round, so people that want to move their clusters could. So no one is like being locked here or there, and we're definitely, because as I shared, like Azure Data Explorer is currently running Azure practically, so it's definitely not going away. It's very stable. It's growing very consistently. So those things will live, one in the SaaS environment, one in the PaaS environment, for a long time. A little bit about the experiences. As I said, the experiences, the query sets, the dashboards can connect to Azure Data Explorer and Sentinel and Azure Monitor. And the collaboration features, these are the ones that we are building, and the ability to store and share and collaborate and discover. And there is a concept of an ORGAP. ORGAP is a way to package multiple dashboards together, including Power BI reports and other elements together, and publish them as a single app. I can give you a really quick look at how it looks like on my own favorite ORGAP that I use to track how is the Cousteau doing across all platforms. And what you can see here is each one of these is a separate, like, real-time dashboard. For example, and within that you can also see financial reports in Power BI, etc. The other like really cool thing is Git integration. The query sets and dashboards in Fabric, you can actually save them to Git, so that you get version control. Not only, by the way, not only the query sets and dashboard, every item in Fabric is Git enabled. So the dashboards, the query sets, but also the databases are synced to Git, and so all their configuration is registered in Git, and you can redeploy. You can have a single solution, you deploy it in multiple workspaces, or you can have a solution, deploy it into your dev environment, into your test environment, into your production environment, using the application lifecycle management. How am I doing with time? Like, we are like, according to the meeting, 25 more minutes. So, but how much time do you need in the end?
You just go ahead. We're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No worries. So we call it the modern medallion architecture because it's a real-time medallion architecture. Like, this is something that we tout in Fabric. Like, you take the data, you put it into a bronze table, and then with update policies, you make it silver, you enrich it, you run an ML model in order to enrich it, or you create an embedding, an AI embedding on it, and then using materialized views, you dedupe, you get the last known value or some aggregates, and that's how you start with raw data, high volume, high velocity data, but still can get to a very condensed, like up-to-date tables, and it's a very successful pattern that we're seeing. A little bit on capabilities. You probably, you folks on this call probably know all this, but I'll share it anyway. When I'm talking about high granularity, I mean high granularity in space, which is geospatial capabilities that we keep evolving. High granularity in time series analytics, sequence analytics. If you didn't try the scan operator. It's a little bit sophisticated to run, but practically it means that you can run a state machine over large volumes of data. And one of the things that we're going to do next is we're going to teach the natural language agent to actually generate more scan queries, so that it's going to be easier to start with the scan operator that is extremely powerful. Another thing that's happening is machine learning, where we keep pushing the ability to host Python. We keep increasing the toolbox for unsupervised machine learning capabilities like autocluster and log reduce and more. And the integration with Spark keeps improving, but the Python hosting is getting better and better, and you can expect a lot more dexterity on the Python execution, including some thoughts about like the ability to really train model and run models with based on GPUs, even within KQL. And as I mentioned, geospatial, like we keep evolving that capabilities. Graph. How many of you have heard about like the graph capabilities in Kusto? Please like the graph semantics thing. It's extremely powerful, and you're going to see more of that coming up soon. I don't have a good demo to show here, but there are like, we should probably organize a KQLCafe session just on that. Like we can show like really awesome graphics on that. So AI, as I said, like we are accelerating the experience by providing agent that helps create stuff, create dashboards, create queries, get like be able to work with the really powerful operators that we've added: graph, scan, time series, anomaly detection, the ability to generate new insights based on AI, and the ability to use AI using new embedding capabilities in order to generate like AI embeddings, but also using Kusto and event houses as vector databases for graph RAG applications. And with that, one second, I'm going to like jump a little bit to another slide on this. But this is actually a pretty common pattern that we're starting to see. People are using event houses, Kusto, as a vector database on one hand, and as a graph database in order to really build like sophisticated graph RAG applications. If you want like either advice or support in actually making those happen, like we're super excited about those. So please do reach out. And will help. I do have more videos and more demos that I can do, but like for now, let's tell us if we will gladly come over and share more. I don't know if you know, but KQL has been open source for a long while by now. And you will be surprised who is supporting KQL. IBM QRadar added support for KQL, and then they sold QRadar to Palo Alto. So now Palo Alto supports KQL natively. In the process, they also made ClickHouse support KQL. So now ClickHouse supports KQL as well. And there are like quite a few others that do so as well. We've seen like Google issuing a version of their products that do something that looks like KQL, but it's like a lot weaker, just like, my opinion. And so all up, we are getting like a pretty huge community. We have like we've measured over like 1.3 million KQL users, and it's growing. One thing that I do want to offer is that if you are seeing a job posting that is a Kusto KQL related job, let us know. We'll promote it and we'll celebrate it, because this is it's a growing and very powerful community. So we'd love to help. And I'll be in the Fabric conference in Vegas in the end of March. So if anyone here is going to be there, like, awesome. If not, I'm going to give a session over there that will be available at some point. So that's that, and I think that like let's open this for like really free form question on all subject Kusto, and you've been awesome, extremely quiet in this session. So please feel free to open mics and just like chime in.
Yeah. So first, I shared a couple of links because you referenced the scan operator. In fact, back in 2022, for those who want to review that session where we had Mehmet in the call who explained it, and also Henning Rauch talked about the graph and graph semantics. So if you want to refresh or get back to one of the earlier KQL shows, consider watching that as well. Henning gave a very good explanation of all this. Yeah.
Then for
I'm pretty excited.
Now, I have one. So if you would have to handle, for instance, for a forensic case, you have like 10 gigabytes of data which you need to query for firewall logs, for device logs, where would you store that?
So if the data is available, like it really like the depend like the if you're asking me like whether Fabric or Azure, like Azure Data Explorer or Event House, I would say like it really depends on your context. If you're in Azure and you have an Azure Data Explorer cluster, then you will just like add a database or add a table and just like upload it. If you are already using Power BI or using Fabric and you feel comfortable in that environment, then you will definitely go and use event houses, because especially for that scale, for like ad hoc, like it's a no-brainer. If you have none of those, Fabric offers a free trial experience, so you can go and sign up for a free trial, and as I said, in 5 seconds get a Kusto cluster up and running and just like load the data in. We're making it constantly easier and easier to load data, so I would try that. You also have the ability to and even if it's like trial data, it's still like you can still handle production data in that. You can also use the Azure Data Explorer free clusters, personal clusters, if you want to. Like those are both options are completely valid. It depends whether you feel more comfortable, what's easier for you to use at a specific point in time.
Do you have like, for instance, in the Fabric, do you have like workbooks where you can predefine certain queries so that if you land firewall logs, maybe you want to see specific outbound things or inbound or whatever, can you prepare that in the Fabric, or how would you do that?
So as I showed, like in Fabric, you have a concept of a KQL query set. Maybe I didn't show this. Like let me show this for a second. 1 second. So I'll go back to the workspace. 1 second. And here I can also create What do we put this? Like I can also create a KQL query sensor like my queries. The cool thing about this is that you connect. It's very much like Kusto Explorer, but it's actually shared. You can add additional databases, you can write queries, you can save them like everything as is, and you can create that thing. You can also like Git integrate it and have this JSON and share this JSON. And what else we're going to do on this direction? Like, let me show you something. Fabric tools. This is so here on the Fabric toolbox, we're starting to share more and more things. For example, the Fabric monitoring itself is using, guess what, Event House in order to monitor the different workloads within Fabric. So here you can actually get like Power BI dashboards and real-time dashboards, and we'll add more shared query sets in JSON format in this environment, so people can actually use, contribute to. And this is just picking up now, but we expect it to become more and more prevalent. One thing, I don't know if we mentioned it, but like, for example, like SQL, if you are one of the interesting workloads that is coming up is SQL Database Watcher. It's the ability to send logs from SQL Database Watcher, from SQL servers into either Event House in Fabric or Azure Data Explorer clusters. And one of the things we want to do is to make a dashboard and share it so that people can actually like download and use the dashboard. So this is definitely starting. If you have like content that you'd like to share or publish, like you can do it you can share this kind of a query set on your site or in this repo, etc. This is definitely something that we're looking at.
Ooh. Yeah, lots of new stuff to explore, and yeah, personally, I'm really looking forward to at least for the the stuff I do to see use cases for the domain I'm working in, which is of course security. Yeah, will definitely be great. I mean, I understand that there's large corporations where they have OT data, or some of the examples you gave. I would say maybe some very sophisticated examples. Would also be cool to see scenarios that many of us could actually maybe not even thinking of right now. But yeah, I mean, we had a while ago a colleague, Koos, who showed a cool solution, how to bring data from Log Analytics into Data Explorer, but it required quite some maintenance, although he crafted a super cool solution that does a lot of that automatically meanwhile. But under the hood, you still have to think of when there's new attributes that you have to update the tables and all that things. And what I understand from the beginning of your presentation, a lot of that is now magically being done behind the scenes. So when I have in the source data, I have new attributes or data types, the event hub and the transformation would deal with such things automatically. Is that correct?
Well, the work with we are working with the Azure Monitor team to make those scenarios like as seamless as possible. Mm-hmm. We started with the just going to share this. Like we started with the data that currently is not possible to route, which is the Azure Monitor Agent data. Routing Azure Monitor Agent data today to external is extremely hard, and we have that working in private preview. If you're interested to try that, like collecting data using Azure Monitor Agent from places and actually routing it to Fabric event houses or to Azure Data Explorer, we can add you to the private preview.
Can I?
Yes, you can. Yes, we'll get you connected, and yes. So that's something that we want to expand. And there are also other ways, as you mentioned, to bring the data in using the existing data plane mechanisms, which we want to make like easier, because eventually it's the customer's data, it's a single data estate, and we need to make it extremely easy for them to be able to join it, use it, and leverage and extract as much value out of it as possible. Sergio asks a question: how are you usually connecting to Graph with Fabric or Power BI? App registration connectors, PowerShell adders. Are you Sergio? Are you referring to Microsoft Graph, like the Active Directory like relationships, or like which kind of graph?
Yes, with Graph Explorer. Well, first of all, Uri, thank you very much for the presentation. It was really, really interesting. And yeah, my point is that I'm connecting a lot Power BI and Fabric with KQL. And I'm doing some execution of the KQL queries with Graph Explorer. But I'm using app registration. Is a bit annoying every time that I need to work with some organization to require this app registration. So I was wondering if there is, or you have experience with some other connectors or PowerShell directly or others.
So Graph is like, I think Graph is one of the words that have like more multiple meanings than many other things. Like, because there is a Microsoft Graph, there is an Azure Resource Graph, there is a Graph database, there is a GraphQL, and more are coming. So I from what you're saying, I think you mean the Azure Resource Graph as a KQL destination. So that's a good point. We are like, because Fabric is a pretty like large endeavor to create a new SaaS framework for the data estate. We are still like ironing out the wrinkles around like managed identity, but the purpose is like we want to be able to use managed identity in order to connect to these resources. So that is ongoing. And the question is like, we will probably need to work with the Azure Resource Graph to make sure that we can actually do the query federation efficiently there, or stream data out. So that's something that we should take into account. I can say that on the other graph, the Microsoft Graph, we are working on getting the notifications and data streaming from the Microsoft Graph and audit into the real-time hub, so that you can consume it very easily. So login events and other things like that. So that's something that that's the top of the list.
Super. Thank you very much.
Folks, like, what else can I try to answer?
Well, everybody's staging a call, so I'm pretty sure everybody is mind-boggled, and we'll have to digest all these new options. But great to hear that there's also a trial option. And yeah, as said, definitely need to digest that and look at possible use cases, and hopefully also Microsoft will share of some of those. Yeah.
And I think that for this audience, I think the most important thing is that we are keeping the experiences consistent. We're making sure that like you can use the tools of your choice with the data wherever it is, and we like work really hard to make sure that things are functional and connected, and you can use like all the innovations that we are doing across the board, and all the innovations that this community is actually contributing and sharing. We want to make that like those assets, scripts and queries and logic and all the experience that you guys are accumulating, like make sure that these are runnable in all the different places and continue to deliver a huge amount of value.
Thank you. Yeah, and I guess with that we have yet another example how it's worth. I always used to say, KQL is the new PowerShell. And I think, this is yet another example why investing in learning. We still hear sometimes, it's difficult, but yeah, practice. And hopefully you will see that, KQL is not just for security folks. It's not just for, soon also for Intune folks. There's, a much wider domain of where that skill set can be applied. Yeah, thank you very much, and really looking forward. We'll definitely follow the developments in this, let's call it in this area of KQL planet or the universum. Yeah.
And I'll share with you also our the ideas forum, so that any feedback and ideas are extremely welcome.
Yeah, and I have all the links that were shared as usual. That will be in the show notes. Awesome. So also, if you're not finding the Teams link back, or you don't want to go to the whole recording as you already attended, consider the show notes to be up in the next couple of days at kqlcafe.com. And there you will find all references. Yeah, and if you have any more you want to share with the audience, just let me know. Uri, I can add those as well. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, folks. It's a pleasure.
Cool. Then many thanks for joining us. Say hello to the team. Awesome work that you're doing there at the very bottom of the core KQL foundation. Henning Rauch explained to us in his last session, while we are, somewhere at level 7, right? Just, considering KQL to work, that, he made us aware of in a very cool way that there's a lot of things going on under the roof, at a much lower level for all this to function and to work. So, and also the petabytes of data, quite interesting to get some insights on that as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Good. Then let's continue. Thank you again. And let's continue with some KQL learning stuff. I'm handing over to Johnny as I need to catch my train.
Yes. So let's do that for a second. Just sharing the link on the video so you don't have to look it up while watching the recording. So if you go to aka.ms/fabric.custo.ideas, you can have the page over here, and then you can submit your ideas for the Fabric ideas. If you run it, you get the full ideas.fabric.microsoft.com, but aka.ms is always a bit faster. So that being said, let's go back to the slides. So basically for learning KQLs, we have some items. First one is in the SC200, there's also a nice KQL module where you can you need to learn KQL for your SC200. It's not real high level, but it's nice to be there. So basically, we've talked about this a lot of times. You have to construct some KQL statements. You have the search operator, where, let, extend, order, project. So it's not that great, but it's good to see that, like Alex said, KQL is becoming more common everywhere. So it's good that it's also in the SC200. So there's a 30-minute module for you to play with. So that's a nice thing. Then next, another thing is for learning KQL. There's some blog posts about also operators, which we found on the web. Basically, the take, search. It's nice explanations about how to use the operators. It's also on the construction. It's graphically appealing. It has nice ordering in here, so you can copy and paste the queries. So that's all good, which is a nice one to play around with. Then next we have the learning KQL. There's Sarah Lean, who also wrote some nice things about some operators, which also are good to know. So she had 3 KQL posts on the Blue Sky. One of them was this. There's also some nice, good foundational KQL on how to work with it. And for the next one is basically what I wanted to show today was Regex. You can make it really broad, but I wanted to show a small beginner section on how to use Regex. So let's see, not this one. So basically, what we can do with Regex. Regex is available in several operators. It's in the Magic Regex. You can do a parse KV with Regex. There are several other places where you can use Regex operators to find things. Short demo, I will be playing around with it for the device file events. So basically, if you do a match as regex, then it will just search for the whole string. So in the folder path, we need Windows apps. As you can see, we have all the Windows apps items. So basically, I intentionally put the data on 30 days. My tenant is quite small, but still, there can be a lot of data in there. So I think it's a real fast operator to use. And basically, table it should be starts with. So one of the things within Regex, if you haven't used it before, if you put the roof icon in there, then you specify it should start with. You can also use the starts with operator or the has prefix operator. But with Regex, you can use this one, and then you get all the items that starts with C:\\. And I escaped the second backslash because backslash itself can be used within Regex. So we needed to escape that one. Then next is the $sign, which basically shows when it ends. So if we do this, then we get all the executables that are in this case the folder path. So with this you can quite easily play with your data. Hey, I want to have it contain or starts with or ends with Regex, and you can also make it a bit more complex when doing Regex. And also, if we look at the time, it ran for 2 seconds. And if we do an ends with, it was 208 and 1.9, so it's almost the same. But as you can imagine, when your data set is growing or when you're making more complex queries, it can be faster to use the matches regex. So for instance, I made I'm working on a detection where I want to specify per application which kind of LDAP queries are possible. And as you can imagine, there's a ton of them. And if you have to do that on a large set of data, then matched regex really helps. So besides the dollar and the roof sign, we also have the asterisk, and that's just basically return everything. And also because I didn't end it with the dollar, we can basically everything that starts with this or contains this actually will be returned. In this case, you get everything that's in my profile in this case. So another thing we could use is the \w, which is basically for all alphanumerical characters. If you use this operator on its own, it can go for up to 14,000 Unicode characters. So if you do this, it can get a bit slow. So basically, the custom documentation also advises you to make sure that you specify it a bit more. Because, for instance, now we have it running for 5 seconds. Wow. The same item would take, I think, 2 seconds we said before. It's also. It was in the one before. But in the end, it will save time if you make it more specific. I also noted here that the asterisk actually means 0 or more characters. So also with this one, if we had a \\/ together, you wouldn't have that in a normal folder path. But if you maybe would put it like this, then you would have at least one, or maybe 2 ones, or anything between the 2 ones. So next would be, if we want to make it more specific, we can use alpha, and alpha basically just defines all A to Z items and doesn't add any numerical or any other Unicode characters. In this case, my query is quite simple, so basically it's still a reasonable amount of time, but if you do it in a large environment, large data set, then it could get more complex. And also basically this one and AZ and AZ, this is basically the same thing. So you can do alphanumerical, or you can write it like this. So basically you make all your sets that you want to have. So it's still about the 0 or more characters. Besides the asterisk, we also have the question mark, and a question mark means 0 or 1. So if you want to make it more specific, if you want to have it to start with a uppercase or lowercase some character, then you can use this if you're not sure if it's beginning with that character. So for this case, it doesn't work because we have more characters than 0 or 1. So you can also use the plus, and with the plus, it says 1 or more. So basically, if we would run this, and then we still would have the same results as this one, but then a bit faster because we are skipping everything that doesn't, well, has 0 items. So next would be, if we have alphanumerical, we can add it like this. So you can add all kinds of combinations. You can have your AZ lowercase, AZ uppercase, and 0 to 9. So basically, if you have, for instance, user accounts, in this case with numerical values, maybe personnel numbers or other things, it would be in here. And this is still just, I'm trying to keep it a bit small because in the regex library, you have a ton of options. But for now, let's keep it like this. And basically, this one and this one is the same. We need to add a plus here. So it's basically the alias, so to say, for this option. The next option would be Hey, I don't have it here. I did run it this afternoon. Let me, because we can make it even a bit more complex, but then I have to matches regex. Oh. And this was the is fine. Small query over here. This was the regex thing I was doing with the LDAP. So basically, we have over here, I have this item, which was quite long, but just for the demo purpose. So if we would do it like this, and we have a complexer query, so we can have A to Z lowercase, we can have 0 to 9, dots, underscores. The \S is basically spaces, @ signs, exclamation mark, more backslashes, other characters. So basically, you can make this set as complex as you want for the use case, and then you can say, hey, we want to have 0 or more. But you could also do it like this and then say we have between, I don't know, 1 and 20 items. Now it's looking for everything with 1 or 20 items. So basically, if we would say demo 8, then nothing would. One of my test accounts has a shorter name, so then you can see basically everything with the shorter format. And then, yeah, there's really a ton more of regex, but I think for now, this is a nice way to start because you have to play with the data, and we will put up the queries in the show notes later so that you can play around a bit in your tenant or in one of the Microsoft demo tenants to get familiar with regex. That being said, so basically, this one was actually from Alex, but he's on move to the train, so I will take it. Alex was working to discover regex, and in this case with Git. So basically, he wanted to find out all the GitHubs within his organization, because if you're saving data and you're not sure which Git repos you use, which locations you use, maybe Git, GitLab, other options. This is a nice way to find out where data is going. So that's this one. And then the topic of last month. Last month I didn't show it because we ran a bit out of time. So today I will keep it short. What I've been doing is within, in this case, GitHub, I have created a GitHub action to collect all the Azure IP ranges, because as you can imagine, sometimes in the sign-in logs you see activity from Microsoft or not from Microsoft. It's nice to play around with. So basically what I did, it's on my Crystal King GitHub. I created a place for the known IP addresses, and in this case I'm saving currently the Azure IP ranges. So what I'm doing here is I'm running a query or PowerShell script actually to sign. Well, in the action, I'm signing in with a credentials. And then I'm using PowerShell to collect all the Azure IP ranges from the API. Because in here you can figure out everything that belongs to Microsoft and then put it in a CSV. And as you can see, in this case, I saved the tag region IP address. So in this case, we can filter out. We have app servers. Basically, all the tagged IP ranges from Microsoft are here. So then we can switch back to Custo, because what we do is we load with the external data. We load this list, and I will basically the PowerShell runs every day. So if there's something new, it will update it. So if you want to use it for your queries, it's up there on GitHub. You can use it. And basically we have all the IP tags, regions, and addresses. So you can play around with that. Next, for the query, what I do is I collect the IP ranges and then convert it to a scalar item so that we can use it in the IPv4 is in any range. So we compare in the device network events, we compare the remote IP with the IP list. And the same we do for nodes and for account. So basically, this case for the short demo, I figured out that from my own tenant, my network traffic is these connections to Microsoft. So about half is to Microsoft and the rest is non-Microsoft. But as you can imagine, if you're doing any threat hunting or any detection engineering, where you might want to see your sign-in logs, but not from Microsoft, or maybe you want to see Azure file activity from Microsoft IP ranges because you expect it normally from users, then you can use this kind of lists. So that was my small thing which I did this month. And that was basically it. So I think we have a bit more content for next month, but we had enough for today. So then usually Alex closes this one off, but today is my turn. So I want to thank you all for joining. Thank you for watching the recording if you haven't joined. And hope to see you next time. Next month we have Sergio, who was on the call today. So next month we can have all the goodness from his side, because he's working on a lot of cool things. And then if you want to register, go to our meetup page. And if you want to review all past recordings of the last 3 years, join us on YouTube, because we have put them all there. And thank you all for watching.